Hello, my name is Alexander Straka, and I'm doing my risk assessment matrix on the teacher's aid in the welding lab here at Laterno. First, I'd like to show y'all, these are a few examples of things that could happen whenever we are using the tools inside of the welding lab. Here is my assessment matrix. I'd just like to show y'all before I get into that. So I made it with it's very basic, with the impact of consequences on the X and then the probability or likelihood on the Y. Um, it ranges from rare to almost certain for the probability with a score of 1 to 5, and the impact of consequences also 1 to 5 with from negligible to catastrophic. And then the scale here is uh, if you have a score of under 3 when multiplying these two numbers together in any circumstance, uh, under 3 is low risk, 4 to 7 is moderate risk, 8 to 14 is high, and 15 and up is very high. So a few examples that I have is like maybe somebody leaves on the gas after use. This can result in some pretty bad things if left unhandled. However, that's why TAs are there to make sure that everyone is safe. So this could all result in health issues if not taken care of. If you're inhaling a lot of gas that you're just not knowing it. Uh, Usually the gas is taken care of pretty soon when people forget it. Um, and I have already plotted that over here on the risk assessment matrix with an impact of 3 and a probability of 4 because some people are very forgetful while using this. So we have a high risk, and what I would do to mitigate this is just to double check that the gas is off after using, and usually they're working in pairs or they're working alongside some of their friends. So having one of them double check that if the gas is off is very helpful. So if we went over here and we got probability of 3 and sorry, probability of 4, and it's a moderate risk or impact, so we'd result in a score of 12, which is a risk of high. Another example I could have is the grinder blade breaking. It's very unlikely if the tools are upkept. Uh, Pretty much when people are using their tools, we just tell them to discard of it if it's got chipped or it's almost out. Um, if it breaks while you're using it, it can be bad, but if you're using the proper personal protective equipment, such as glasses, like a leather coat or our welding coat, uh, you run the risk of not really having a very impactful or damaging thing happening to you. Um, so if we go over here, it's rare, very rare for that to happen, and it has a score of 2, so it has a low risk. Just one more for, anyways, flammable material catching fire. If you're not wearing your proper PPE, or if you're working around throwing sparks somewhere that has flammable material around, this could impact stuff and be pretty bad. Although we do have a lot of fire extinguishers, that's why this impact is not higher. So the impact is 2, and I rated the probability as 2 because it's very unlikely. It's not very likely for someone to not wear their proper PPE. However, it might be uh, slightly more likely for someone to send grinding sparks towards something that shouldn't be, that is flammable. So unlikely and minor, which results in a score of 4 for moderate. Um, and we just tell the kids just don't leave the flammable material lying around, and just make sure to always have your proper PPE. Of course, we don't let them in if they're not wearing their protective equipment. And yes, so over here I actually plotted the my examples. So leaving the gas on, using cutting torch, flammable material catching fire, shocking yourself, grinder blade breaking. I actually plotted them on my risk matrix. So as you can see, using a cutting torch is very, very, like, you are going to use a cutting torch in this class, in our class at least. Um, And while working in the welding lab for extracurriculars, you are most likely to use a cutting torch. So, and if with the proper training, you will not be hurting yourself. Uh, Leaving the gas on after use is a very moderate uh, impact, but and it is quite likely it does happen. Flammable material catching fire is very unlikely, and since we have so much safety procedures and everything, it is not very impactful. Grinder blade breaking is very rare, but it can have a minor impact. And shocking yourself, which is very, very unlikely, it could have a more moderate effect on the student. But yes, thank you so much for listening. This is my risk assessment matrix once again. And here are my examples and my plotted graph. Thank you so much for listening.